Let's go. So this is going to be a very quick mark review for today. I'm not going to do any psychology. I'm not going to do too many questions. Obviously, if you've got some questions, we'll go through them. But I'm just going to do a very quick and easy markup for today, kind of the way that I normally would do them, going from higher time frame to lower time frame, just marking out the PD arrays and keeping it very simple. All right. So it shouldn't take anything more than 10 minutes, depending on obviously how the questions go. But we'll start here on the 4-hour chart. Okay. Anytime you want to see sort of this weekly move, or even just a directional daily move in line with the weekly bias, we want to see some sort of H4 PD array engaged. This is common knowledge. At least I feel like most people know that. In terms of weekly direction, you're 4 hours paired with that. So you're looking for a minimum of a 4-hour PD array to be engaged, and then towards that draw on liquidity. That's why you don't see really any high quality move yesterday, because we're kind of stuck within those 4-hour PD array range and there's no activation there. On the contrary, today we have a very nice run on stops from the previous daily low, forming SMT there. Pull up this, you can see the daily low there on ES and on NASDAQ ran out. You have SMT, same thing with YM there. So SMT at that daily low, but regardless, my expectation and my bias coming into the morning was previous weekly high. That's actually my bias since Monday. So I was looking for that previous weekly high as a draw on liquidity. We have a bunch of low resistance buy side printing this way, and overall structure and order flow was supporting the bullish delivery. So nice run on stops across, away from the draw on liquidity there. So purging the sell stops. And then as we go to the 1-hour chart, we'll start to look for kind of the daily dynamics. Here we have the midnight open. You can see nicely meaningful manipulation going on right there, where it's running the stops, counter bias, and then it's coming back up and displacing to a short-term swing high. That would be your meaningful manipulation. All right, meaningful manipulation dropping down, taking the stops, forming an SMT with the yes there, right? And then displacing away going into the New York session. So you expect this to potentially be and what it was a classic London protraction profile. So London making the low of the day, New York open giving the exit, London close giving you the, New York open giving you the re-entry, and then London close giving you the exit. So 2 to 5, 7 to 10, 10 to 12, forming this as a classic London protraction profile. All right. So meaningful manipulation going on down here. Down there. All right. I guess I can start to screenshot these as well and see if you want to download them and use them for your own practicing. You can. So meaningful manipulation, draw on liquidity, and then you've got a imbalance here forming, which is also useful just for directional draw. As we go to the 15-minute chart, we want to see those session dynamics play in, and obviously this kind of continuously moving higher price action, as well as PD arrays holding, and then that session move. So you can split this up into weekly lows, where you think the weekly low is going to be, even if this isn't the weekly low. 4-hour PD array engaged, 4-hour SysD. You can see this potentially as the weekly low. Same thing here, meaningful manipulation on the daily perspective, form that as the daily low during a key time. Okay, of right at 2 a.m. Perfect. Displacement away. So now you're looking for this section, the New York continuation between the times of 7 to 10 a.m. to give you the re-entry, and then a continue up coming into the rest of the session. So you're looking for a 15-minute POI. We just did the 1-hour chart. That's our daily low. Now we need to find where the session low is going to form, or at least a session low. It doesn't have to be the lowest low, just a session low that we can use. Right in here, we have an inefficiency. I know there's a lot of stuff on the chart, but I want to bring your attention to this. Inefficiency on the 15-minute chart. Okay, and then we have the times of 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock right in here. This is our New York open kill zone. Okay, during this time, you want to see the same exact thing that you see down here, either a run on stops or an imbalance to be filled. Right in here, you have 7 a.m. Obviously, it's trading within that imbalance. Starts to leave, runs that short-term high, and then here at 8:45, drops back down, tags the imbalance. You can see that as a session low, and you're looking for an entry somewhere in here. And then obviously the run up towards the buy side there, and you can see that the session is going from internal range to external range for the session. Open, low, high, close for the day. Open, low, high, close for the session. This is like beautiful price action we can look at. All right, so our attention draws immediately to here. You know, as soon as that would be when we say, okay, our model is higher time frame PD array, blah, blah, blah. This is exactly where we want to be looking, right? We don't really care too much around here. We can go through it, obviously, but for our specific setup, this is what we want to be stalking. Okay, so as soon as that tags a higher time frame PD array, we go down to the 5-minute. What's going on in the 5-minute? What could help us filter for a specific trade? Obviously, with the ATM model and the way that we'll be looking at for this presentation is some sort of 5-minute order flow to be lining up through the sense of a change in state delivery and inefficiency being traded through, or a market structure shift. So right in here, you have a change in state delivery. Also notice the gap there forming on the 5-minute. So higher time frame PD array tagged, 5-minute change in state delivery out of it, drawn liquidity up here, 1-minute chart. Now you can start to see the low, high, lower low that digs into the higher time frame PD array. These consecutive up closing candles would all be what? Your breaker. Okay, got your breaker, got your inefficiency in here. That would be your unicorn setup. Breaker plus inefficiency being traded into, perfect, bang. You already had your manipulation, right? This is already your session low, and it's forming your manipulation here. So what do you expect 930 to do? Expand. So manipulation, next function of key time is going to be used as expansion. You already have this entry in here. If it already manipulated, it already gave you the low risk buy. 930 is just going to send. Okay, you do have a slight SMT in here that you can look for. But 930 expands, 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 and its target on time would be between the times of 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. You can see right here, runs the buy side. At 10:02, it forms the high, and that would be the price action that you're studying. I also want you to notice at which time it places this swing low at 8:56. So this is your macro time. Obviously 930 expanding, and this is why you have a very kind of early move on a day like today. You know, later moves in here, you do have a very late entry with this macro, but it's not going to give you a lot of room, nor is it going to give you a really high quality entry that's going to be easy to spot and repeatable, I guess is the main thing, right? Let me turn off my night mode. It's turning on right here, I can tell. Turn off. There we go. So, and also this still meets the requirements for the day. And obviously we do have this nice reaction off of it, coming back into the range, going into the rest of the AM session. But for what I want to be studying is this whole thing. Excuse the language there. But this whole thing is repeatable, okay? And actually, if you even wanted to go into here, right in here, as is formed the low of the day, during the key time of 2 a.m. to 5 a.m., this is a macro time, all right? And you can say, okay, how do you know that's going to be used? For fib projections, something like the Asian range is very good to be targeting. There's 3 different ranges that normally we use in Forex, known as the central bank dealer range, the flout, and then the Asian range. Not discussed a whole lot of times in futures because it's not super prominent and useful, at least for my own studies. I haven't used it a whole lot. But a lot of times when it does work, it's very useful because, especially when you can use the Asian range for fib projections and time projections. Anytime you look at more core content, month 10, month 9, month 8, you'll see that within the Asian range, in a classic kind of buy template, you want to be purging the Asian range low, during the London session and using that as your daily low. And what you can see is if you measure the Asian high to Asian low, you'll get your fib projections for the day. And you also, if you wanted to, you can time fib the entire Asian session. That'll give you your time projections for the day. But this is all, it's all timed. You know, you look at this every single day. It's everything in here is timed from the low of the day to the re-entry to the exit of the day. It's all in there. That's repeatable entries of time. In this case, this specific example, it is just early. Okay, the move is happening earlier than you normally see it at. Preferably, right? Like this would be 9:30. 9, or even here would be 9:30, where it's running down to that PD ray, or starting here and it runs down the PD ray, and this right in here would be your macro time. You have to identify coming into 9:30 where we are at 9:30. If you're able to decipher that, you'll know whether or not it's going to expand, manipulate, form the low of the day, form the low of the session. And 9:30 itself is a very useful entry time. If you can learn it, I think you first got to study this macro, because it's going to be a higher quality macro, obviously seen by the fact that it's forming the high of this range. It's just sometimes it's going to be giving this kind of entry where it's counter bias from the rest of the move, and also it's a later entry. So 9:30 itself, 9:30, 9:50, 10:50, the three entry times that I study and use a lot of times. You can just see it's going on earlier today. And that's why it's not hard price action. It's not bad price action. It's just something that if you're not familiar with, you're going to get a missed entry or a very late entry and get stopped out like I did today. You know, your question may be, oh, we have 8:30 news tomorrow. 8:30 news tomorrow is unemployment claims. Unemployment claims is like a tier 2 release, meaning it's still red folder, but the amount of impact that it has in pre-market conditions and in the day before is minimal. So, you know, the rule of thumb is any 8:30 news the day before is bad, but there's specific news drivers that are going to be bad before 8:30 news, right? Tier 1 is going to be the main one. Unemployment claims is pretty low on the board in terms of 8:30 news driver. So the price action beforehand is not something to skip. Unless it says otherwise, right? We still look at the higher time frame and the lower time frame to make sure that it's lining up. Otherwise, you have this kind of decent price action that you're missing. Awesome. How do you time fib the Asian range? So you'll just go into here. This is something for your gem of the day, if you will. So this is using the fib projections and projections from Asian range. There's 3, like I said, CBDR, Asian range, flout. In this case, we're using the Asian range. If you want to learn more about this, you can go into month 9 or 8 or something, and you can see this. But the way you would fib project in time Asian range is you just take the times. So from 8 p.m. to 10 midnight, just the same exact thing, right? You're taking the high and the low from that respective range. You're also going to take the opening time and the closing time. You take your fib projection. You can see here to here. Quite random, right? -2, -2.5, tagging the -4, -4.5 with the buy side. Gotta be random. And then you can see as well in here your -0.5, -1, lining up with your -1, -1.5. That would be your re-entry. Same thing in here, right? This is where does 9:30 open? 9:30 opens between -1 and -1.5. So you're gonna see that what in here. This is your silver bullet. What does the silver bullet look like? Mitigation with an efficiency. 1 minute chart. Was that right in there? Right, so it's all lining up perfectly. And then entry and exit, you can see the exit in here, -2.5, boom, right at 10 a.m., right on the dot. And then everything else kind of lining up perfectly. So that's how you would use Asian range for time and fib projections, and something you can look back and study when it does happen. It's very, very nice. It's obviously repeatable for very specific days. It's not going to be every day that works. Otherwise, it's going to be easy for retail to pop on. So you've got to know what you're measuring and when you're measuring it. Otherwise, it means nothing. And that also is helpful when you have a bias. So it's that projections are selections for when the high of the day is going to be printed, right? Our standard kind of projection would be here. Last manipulation leg, -4, boom, right there. So when these are lining up consecutively with your target, and you start to see it over and over and over again, -2, -2.5, and you start to narrow them down, you can see the narrowing effect. And that's lining up exactly with a previous premium array in the form of time-based liquidity. This is our previous weekly high. So when you start to see this lining up, that's when you can anticipate the high of the day forming, or where you can, rather. When is in a matter of time, but in terms of price, this is where you're going to see a lot of your overlaps and clustering, and especially when it lines up with the higher time frame PD array. Very good targeting purpose. But you'll see this, obviously, your last manipulation leg will be present everywhere, right? So you could just kind of know when to use it, when it's going to be viable, things like that. Are there specific criteria for when the time fib projections work within the Asian range? For this specific profile, classic London protraction, but time fib is applicable everywhere. I just don't teach it. I think I've taught it 2 times. There was a video that I used to post back in 2023. It's unlisted now. And I think I did a PD in the PDF chat. There's a video about time fibbing, actual market maker models on a lower time frame. So you can use it anywhere. And you'll see that kind of lining up where it's lining up in both the y-axis and the x-axis. You don't need it to be completely timed where you draw it. It can be that last manipulation, like I said before, and you'll see that repeatable phenomena go on. There is specific criteria. That's why I say to go in to watch those core content months. I'm not a master at it at all. So it's just good to see in hindsight, and it's not something that I'll use all the time, but just for the explanation of today's price action, I'm going to use it just to show a little gem to maybe study for someone who's new, or if you're bored, that's me. I'm just, anything that happens in price action, if I see it, I love to just learn as much as I can. So for today, that's what I'm looking for. Can you share the group with the group unlisted? If I can find it, yeah. I can't remember if I unlisted it or if I deleted it. It's one of the two. But we'll probably have just a dedicated time fib video in the future sometime. So we can go through that. But if you want to see the loss from today as well, took one on stream just for purposes of transparency, of course. Here's the setup that I lost on today. Absolute banger of a trade, buying it at the high. I got stopped out there, clearly. All good. It is what it is. Obviously, I learned from today. What could I've done better? So this mark review is exactly for me, as well as much it is for you. Improving on it. You can look at this and maybe say it was a bad trade, but everything I wanted was there. So this is a good trade for me. And I can obviously learn from it. So it's even a better of a trade. And I can learn exactly where I maybe should have gone in at 930, or maybe not have taken this trade and things like that. Maybe a flipped bias, things like that. It is what it is, right? We're taking a poll right now with the private group of whether or not I should run this account up to 100,000 in profit, or if I should reset it and just keep going for 50Ks. So we'll figure that out in the next, maybe tomorrow. But tomorrow, we're in a good position. I really don't care if it goes up or down, to be completely honest. I would like to see preferably a New York open reversal. We either got to move a lot in midnight or overnight, or we have to see some sort of low form during London on a 4-hour, and then New York takes it. But in terms of POIs, we've got that high and that low. And as much as we're within this range, I don't really want to be trading. If we're closer to here, I have no problem longing it going into Thursday's London close, or even further into Friday. That would make a Monday low of week, which is pretty bullish for the week. If we are to drop down and obviously displace through here, then I'd be bearish until Friday, like Friday close, because that would be a midweek reversal. So I have no attachment to price action for tomorrow. Just going to wake up, see how it is, and it's probably going to be the best day out of the week is my anticipation, and Friday should also be pretty good. So looking forward to the price action that we're being offered. And yeah, like I said, I wanted to keep it short today. So if I talk too fast, I know I sometimes do. This is all recorded, and you can go back in and watch it if you require to. All right. Any questions, you send me DMs. It's always open. And Lord willing, I will see you guys tomorrow for a tape reading stream and hopefully some nice wins, of course, because everyone likes to win. And be safe until then. All right. So take care, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.